Hey guys, it's Cayley. I'm back with another What Sold from Last Week video. In today's video, I'll be going over my sales that happened last week on eBay and Poshmark. I'll also dive into some of those individual pieces, talk about why I picked them up in the first place, some keywords that I used, and how long it took to sell. As a reminder, my goal for my business is to sell things within 90 days. Let's dive into today's video. Okay, so back to a more classic view of my what solds. I didn't include Depop in this, but I did have several $100s worth of Depop that I'll probably do a separate video on for those of you that are interested in the Depop sales. But my two main platforms have always been eBay and Poshmark. And in total, I sold 113 items for gross item sales, meaning not including what I received for shipping, was a little over $3,700. My average item sale price was close to $33. On eBay, I sold 65 items, and then I had a pretty decent week on Poshmark with 48 items sold. On eBay, I had a pretty high item average sale price of around $38, which is great. That's where I want to be. And then on Poshmark, I continued moving out some older items for a lower average sale price of $26. Let's go ahead and dive into these individual sales. All right, this first one is one that I just recently got in wholesale. I do like buying luxury stuff for wholesale, but I am very nervous to sell certain luxury brands just because of authenticity and all the stuff. This one I was very happy with because it came with the actual box. This is a great bolo brand to know. It is Manolo Blahnik. They're really well known for their shoes. And this one, although it did have a little bit of wear, was a very classic style. Now, Manolo Blahniks and honestly really any luxury brands don't have a super high sell-through rate typically. So you really need to drill down into what you have and then price accordingly if you want it to move quickly. Like I said, my goal is to move things within 90 days. So if something doesn't have a 100% sell-through rate within 90 days, then I'm going to price more competitively to try to move that item within 90 days. I paid up for this item in wholesale. I paid $20 for them. I listed them for $125 or best offer, again, price to move the item, and was willing to accept offers. Someone, however, just bought the item outright for my full asking price of $125, and this one sold within just 2 days of being listed. The next one is one that I found at a thrift store. I've actually found this brand multiple times at my local thrift stores in the middle of nowhere. Like, this is not me traveling to the good sourcing locations. This is me doing supplementary thrift runs in my small town where I don't normally find good brands. And I've now found this brand multiple times at regular thrift stores. So even though you might not find the high sell-through rate bolo brands every single time you go, you still want to know them because every now and then you are going to come across them and you need to know what they are. So this is a very high sell-through rate brand. It's called Cantha Bay. And this item does one size fits all. It's very log and look and boho. I can usually tell what the item is because all of them have this unique stitching throughout. And so whenever I see that, I'm like, I gotta go look for that. It's probably Cantha Bay. I listed these patchwork harem pants for $125. They sold on an offer to watcher for $106. And these ones did take about 90 days to sell. Next up, this was a newer bolo to me. It is called Dragonfly. And it is a men's combo hoodie with a velvet jacket. A few reasons why this kind of stood out, we picked this up from the bins, was because velvet, number one. And number two, it leans very like emo, grunge, punk kind of aesthetic, which is all umbrellaed under Y2K. And so this alternative style was a reason that we wanted to look it up in the first place, just for style-based reasons. So for all of those factors combined, we ended up listing this for $75, and it ended up selling for that full asking price of $75. This one took I always mess up my months. This one did take about 90 days to sell for that full asking price of $75. It did have some pretty good interest. If you see anything, especially men's stuff that looks like very like Y2K goth emo, I would definitely look it up. All right, next up, this was also from a wholesaler. I also paid up for these. These are a pair of We the Free barrel jeans, and they were also new with tags. Love that, and they were a great size. This one these particular style were called the Good Luck High Rise Barrel Leg Jean, and I did some comp research on the exact size, condition, and all that stuff, and I ended up listing this for $50. I paid $10. This ended up selling for my full asking price of $50 and sold within just 3 days of being listed. Any brand that has this barrel leg style is one that you absolutely want to look up. There are brands like, I'm making some up. Gap might not have these. They probably do. I know Old Navy does, but like Old Navy, Gap, and some other brands that you might not normally get in denim. If they're in that barrel leg style, I would look them up because they tend to have good sell-through rates. It's still probably the most popular leg style right now. So these barrel jeans were an absolute yes, and Free People definitely is well known for those styles and has great sell-through rates. So sold for full asking price again within just 3 days of being listed. Next up, this one took a little while sitting, but it is a style that I wanted to bring up because in general, this brand Timberland for both women's and men's is a high performer for me in footwear. And this one had like all over patchwork details. It was knee high. So there were lots of substantial factors to it that I thought would do well. It was super Y2K. I think we just initially priced too high due to the condition. There were some marks on the leather. I wasn't really sure what to price it for because of that. I paid $13 for this at a thrift store. I originally listed them, I think, closer to $65. We since dropped the price and they ended up selling for my dropped price of around $51. So 13 into 51, not bad. Although this did take a couple more months to sell than I would have liked. But when it comes to Timberland boots, I find that most resellers leave Timberlands, especially at the bins. We find them a lot at the bins, men's, women's, in most styles, especially boots. I find that they flip very quickly. So might be one you want to keep your eye out for. All right, next up is a sweater type that I look for a lot, which are ones that have great materials made in other countries, such as Scotland. So this one is a vintage Nethy, I think. It was made in Scotland, which is why we wanted to look it up. We paid $7 for this, I believe, in wholesale and listed it for $50. This one was a mohair blend, and just because something is mohair does not mean when we want to pick it up, it needs to have other factors going for it too. So in addition, this is just a very trendy pattern right now, which is that like Nordic Fair Isle look. It has kind of puff style sleeves or bishop sleeves, and it's in very muted feminine color. So all things combined, great piece. And again, anytime I see wool, mohair, alpaca made in Scotland, Ireland, and things like that, Peru, I'm definitely looking it up. So this one we listed for $50. It did have a slight discoloration on the sleeve, so we included that in our pricing, and this sold for our full asking price of $50. This one actually sold the next day after being listed. Next up, a brand I've mentioned a lot is Smartwool. This is another one that resellers pass on a lot, and it's because when they think of Smartwool, they only think of their wool base layers. They don't realize that Smartwool makes other stuff, and those are typically the pieces that I find are their more substantial, like sweaters, jackets, and things, just because like resellers aren't recognizing it. We come across it a lot. So this is a Smartwool merino wool full zip vest. I listed this for $40, got it in wholesale for $8, and it sold for our full asking price of $40. This one only took 5 days to sell. Next up, this was one that we got maybe wholesale, maybe thrift store, but it's soft surroundings. I don't normally pick up soft surroundings unless it's a plus size these days, but this was a size large and it was a beautiful piece. It was a satin beaded kimono, just really heavily leaning into some of the style aesthetics that I'm looking for. So even though it wasn't a plus size, I thought I had enough going for it that it was worth getting. The beading detail, the just silky satiny kimono style with the darker floral is something people are looking for. So got this, listed this for $40. It sold for my full, or not my full asking price, and offered a watcher for $34. I paid $5. And this one took a couple of months to sell, so closer to that 90 days. All right, another high sell-through rate brand is Vuori. I think we all know this brand at this point, but I like pointing it out because some of their stuff is heavily overlooked. Like if I look at these pair of leggings, I'm not thinking Vuori. So I like showing pieces that you may be overlooking. And sometimes the rip tag's not there. Sometimes it's just a little patch on the side. So I just like showing these pieces. These are called the Daily Athletic Leggings. Again, pretty much anything in this brand. Pretty much, not everything, but pretty much everything. Very high sell-through rate. And this is another one I come across pretty often because people overlook these pieces. I listed this for $35. We picked it up at the bins and it sold for our full asking price of $35. These ones only took 4 days to sell. All right, this was an item that we actually relisted. This is LL Bean. This is one of my favorite brands to find. I come across it very often because I live in kind of like a cold mountainous region, but LL Bean does not have a 100% sell-through rate, but there are so many bolos within LL Bean that you can factor stack, style-based flip, that I just really love this brand. This one we picked up because it is a corduroy shirt jacket. And honestly, any women's or men's corduroy shirt jacket I'd be looking into, even in brands that don't normally perform well for you because heavily elevated value. And an LL Bean corduroy is something that people are looking for. I think we could have sold this faster if we would have put, I think it's called Wide Whale in the title, which is this like thicker corduroy style. But since we failed to do that, it's sat, which is really important lesson. You want to take your most valuable features and get those into your title so that it can get to the right buyer. Anything that adds value, you want to include that. So this one got relisted because it did sit at $35 or best offer. We originally paid $4. Like I said, this one took a while to sell, and after getting relisted, sold very quickly within a month or two for an offer to watcher of $30. But I'm picking these up all day long. If you guys do come across these like thicker corduroys, make sure that you do look that up. All right, next up, another brand that performs well for me in specific pieces. This is Vineyard Vines. In particular, the men's department is where I like getting Vineyard Vines. I believe this one also came from the same wholesaler from all the stuff I've been showing you. She brings me some really high sell-through rate things, which we love. Very good eye for stuff. So this is a Vineyard Vines men's performance vest. We got this for $5, listed for $30. Again, being very cautious of pricing. And this sold for a full asking price of $30. This one only took 4 days to sell. Next up, this is more of a style-based piece. It is Banana Republic, but similar to LL Bean, is a brand that during this time of the year you can factor stack and find great style-based pieces in. And Banana Republic makes some pretty decent stuff, and they do have a following. It's just like kind of oversaturated on resale platforms. But Banana Republic men's sweaters, specifically cardigans, always perform well for me. This is a men's size large. It's kind of a thinner material, but again, something people are looking for. Listed this one for $30, picked it up at the bin, sold for full asking price of $30. This one took about a month to sell. All right, this one you might have seen in a recent Instagram reel that I did. This is not a brand I would look for. It is like a no-name brand, but it had some very, sorry, my husband just closed the door and scared me. So I just kind of shook there. This is a hybrid men's just style-based Y2K piece. This was thick, it was lined, it was a camo print, just screamed very Y2K, so picked it up for that reason. Listed at $35 or best offer. It did have some wash wear, and it sold for an offer to watcher of $30. I paid $6.99 for this one. I included some keywords like thick, Sherpa lined, camo, grunge, Y2K, those kind of things. Next up is something I was testing out. This is the brand St. John's Bay, not a brand you would normally want to get, but in certain pieces, style-based or factor stacking can perform well. The reason I got this one is I try to only get thicker sweaters. So this one was a thicker Fair Isle Christmas holiday print sweater. And it was also a larger size and a size extra large. So factor stacking this piece completely, I listed this one for $35. And this one sold on an offer to watcher for $30. We got this one from the bins as well. And this one took a couple of months to sell. Next up, another soft surroundings piece. Again, I don't typically pick up soft surroundings unless it is a plus size piece, but this one was an extra large and it was a great style-based piece. This one is very like Renaissance. It's got some like patchwork details, very fairy, ethereal, like lots of great keywords we can use with this. But this was more of a style-based piece than anything. This one also had some pretty beading. Listed this one for $30. It sold for our full asking price of $30, and I got this for $5, sold for full asking price. And this one actually only took 3 days to sell. Next up, another Y2K piece. This is the brand Hollister. Hollister is becoming really popular in the Y2K community almost as much as Abercrombie, and so I'm inching my price up for those reasons. This one is just a pretty plain ribbed tank top, but very into that Y2K style, especially the color, that dark navy blue and the longer length. I listed this one for $30. We got it from the bins, probably paid like 50 cents because it's so lightweight. Sold for a full asking price of $30, and this one only took a couple of months to sell. I also sold this Hollister tank top, same exact thing from the bins, $30, tank top, super lightweight, and this one also sold for my full asking price of $30, and this one also took about a couple of months to sell. All right, next up, a style-based piece. I have been finding a lot of cat stuff lately, and I've said it before, but crazy cat lady stuff always sells well for me, so it's always a big consideration when I find anything with cats on them. This one I got for $4.99 at a thrift store. It was a sweatshirt with a little cat embroidery. And we listed this one for $30, sold for full asking price of $30, and this one took a couple of months to sell. Cats always sell for me. This one is a style-based piece, not a brand you would know anything about and should not memorize, but the silhouette is one that you should. This is a very like milkmaid style, coquette style dress with that smocking detail, the ruffle, the puff sleeve, but it was also in a color that I typically wouldn't associate with those styles. So for that reason, I priced a little bit lower because of the color, just kind of throwing it off from that customer. Otherwise had really great factors. Listed this for $28, sold on an offer to watcher for $24, and this one only took a few weeks to sell. Again, we got this item from the bins, which is where I'm picking up most of our style-based pieces just because it is less risky. And I think whenever you're learning style-based stuff, you definitely want to be less risky with your pieces. Our cost of goods on average at the bins is $1.50, but some of the like little tank tops that you're seeing, I'm literally paying like maybe a quarter to 50 cents. They're so lightweight, and so they're great to bulk up the store. All right, next up, this is a brand that in certain pieces can do well. It is Outdoor Research. I like finding stuff in the men's department in this brand. This one is just a plaid flannel. I listed this one for $25. It sold for a full asking price of $25. I paid $5, and this sold within just 2 days of being listed. Another kind of like style-based factor stacking piece, I've talked about this a bunch. Men's corduroy pants always perform well. This one is J. Crew. And yeah, just a pretty plain pair of men's corduroy pants. I only list it for $25. It sold for a full asking price of $25. And this one only took a couple of weeks to sell from the bins as well. All right, another men's flannel. This is Patagonia. A lot of people pick up any Patagonia, and at the bins I usually pick up any Patagonia, but a lot of their styles actually are oversaturated now, and so pricing is really important. You cannot overprice oversaturated styles brands. And so I price mine accordingly. Surprisingly, men's Patagonia flannels actually are pretty oversaturated. This one was called the Fjord flannel button-up shirt in a size extra large, and we still only priced it at $25. It sold on an offer to watcher for $21. We paid $5. This took 3 days to sell. All right, going into some of the Poshmark sales. Like I said, I had a pretty good week on Poshmark, and although in general my average sale price was lower, I still had some really great full price sales also. All right, so to start, this one is more bread and butter. I've talked about this 100 times, but men's thermal shirts during this time of the year, look them up, especially from the bins. Great way to pad your sales and come across things often. Polo Ralph Lauren's definitely an elevated brand. I probably listed this closer to $30 and accepted an offer of $25. All right, next up, another Y2K piece. This is a pair of American Eagle micro mini shorts. In the mall brands and micro mini shorts, I found that they have performed well for me. You probably want to steer slightly away from them since we're in winter now. But if I came across these at the bins, again, about 50 cents, I'm going to pick them up. So American Eagle, popular mall brand, Y2K, and they're the micro, so not just mini shorts, but super tiny micro shorts. Listed these for $35. They sold on an offer for $29. I used the keywords Y2K, micro mini, and also plaid because I did think that elevated the value, heavily leaned into like that preppy style. Okay, next up is an Anthropologie brand called Let Me Be. Is it just me or some of the Anthropologie labels are in cursive and you cannot tell what it actually says? So this one was Let Me Be, an Anthropologie dress, and patchwork details. Again, patchwork, patchwork, patchwork. You see anything patchwork, I would definitely look it up. And then searching in your comps patchwork will help to kind of narrow down to cleaner results for you of stuff that actually looks like yours. So this one was a size small. However, it was oversized and had beautiful details. Besides the patchwork, we have long sleeve, exaggerated like peasant sleeves. We have some tiered details, floral, lots of great factor stacking. This one sold on an offer for $40. That one sold very quickly. We just listed that. Okay, next up is another bread and butter brand that I like getting, specifically in the men's department. It is Orange Theory Fitness. This is an Orange Theory men's long sleeve t-shirt. I included some keywords like workout, gym, athleisure, and it ended up selling on an offer for $25. Here is a bag that I just recently came across. I actually came across 2 or 3 of these, but I paid up for them. I think I paid about $10 to $15 each at a thrift store. Again, I'm not coming across these every single time that I go, but when I do, sometimes I find them in batches, and it's good to know what these brands are, even if you think you may not come across them. So this is the brand Portland Leather Company. I think this one is very overlooked because their branding is so small. It kind of blends into the leather, but they're known for their high quality leather goods, and their sell-through is really good as a whole, especially their backpacks. So I paid $10 to $15 for this. This is a classic pebbled tote backpack. Kind of like a medium-sized one. This was also a unique color in red, and it had a little bit of wear on it, but Portland Leather Company customers seem to not care about slight discoloration to leather because the brand as a whole, they have some like discoloration to the leather. It's more of like a worn-in look. So I listed this one for around $75 and very quickly accepted an offer of $63. All right, next up, another high sell-through rate brand you want to be on the lookout for is Hoka One One. I've mentioned them 100 times. They're sneakers and stuff. I always look up the style, the size, because this brand is starting to become slightly oversaturated in certain styles. But kind of an outlier are their boots. So this is actually a pair of waterproof hiking boots. This one had lots and lots of wear, which is why we price lower. But despite the wear, very high sell-through rate on Hoka One One boots. So just keep your eye out for them. There's some other brands that do this like Solomon and other brands that if you can find the sneaker brand in the boots, very high sell-through rate. I accepted an offer of these very quickly for $40. Here is another brand popular for their merino wool base layers, similar to Smart Wool. I believe this one I just did a reseller buyout from somebody who was closing their eBay store. I believe this just came from them and sold like almost immediately. This one I paid $5 for. It is a women's quarter zip 320 merino wool pullover, similar to how down jackets sometimes have a specified down fill. Merino wool within certain brands also sometimes has a specified weight for how heavy or thick or warm the wool base layer may be. So if you see that, make sure to look it up, include it in your title and all of that. Icebreaker as a brand, I feel like has gone slightly downhill on pricing. I feel like there were some other brands that kind of took over, but still a great brand to look for. I listed this one for $25 just because of sell-through rate and equal comps, and it did sell for $25. Here is another Icebreaker women's long sleeve shirt. The men's are obviously going to sell for more. These are both women's. This is a 200 merino wool long sleeve base layer, and this also sold on an offer for $25. You guys know I sell a lot of plus size women's tops. It is a customer I feel like I've got figured out, and I come across stuff and flip it all the time to kind of pad my sales. So I have been kind of like pulling off of showing you guys those because I was showing you so many in previous what sold videos. So I'm showing you just a couple today just to kind of reintroduce some brands that I like to look for. This is one that has been performing really well for me, which is Land's End. This is a size 3X cowl neck top listed for around 25, sold on an offer for 22. And then I also still like finding logo Lori Goldstein in substantial pieces. This one's also a 3X. Again, I've been saying this a lot, but 3X is a great size and plus size, significantly higher sell-through rate and value. This one is a cardigan, very classic for logo Lori Goldstein with like mixed media lace trim underneath. This one also sold for around 25. All right, this is the brand Kuhl, Kuhl, very similar to Outdoor Research and Vineyard Vines. I really only like finding this stuff in the men's department. There's a few exceptions, but mostly the men's stuff is what I look for. So this is a cool men's short sleeve button-down shirt. I use keywords like utility, hiking, and outdoors to steer it to the right customer. And I listed this for $30 on Poshmark. It actually sold for our full asking price of $30. All right, I cannot wait till warmer weather again because I love selling golf polos. This is one I took a risk on. It is a Bonobos men's golf polo, which does perform well in spring and summer when people are actually outdoors playing. But golf polos for me take a huge dive for fall and winter when people aren't really wearing them, which means they're not really buying them. So I purchased this one as the colder weather was hitting. And I'm glad it sold because it was risky. But the reason I still got it is because it was a good brand, it was a larger size, and it was printed. So remember this for the upcoming spring season. When you have a golf polo with a print on it, it's going to significantly increase the value. So I knew that I had great factor stacking in this piece, but I priced lower knowing we were moving out of the season in which it would most likely sell. So this ended up selling for $24. 25 is what I was aiming for. Next up, this one is another athletic wear brand that I still like finding, although I don't pick up everything in this brand anymore, just their substantial pieces. It is Built, B-Y-L-T. You used to be able to get their t-shirts, like anything in this brand, and they would flip. They become oversaturated, but their more substantial pieces are still heavily sought after. So this one was called the Fairway Athletic Pullover, extra, extra large. It was blue, which is like a neutral color for men, and it was new attack. So lots and lots of factor stacking. I listed this for around, I think 70-ish on Poshmark to account for offers and accepted an offer of 60. This item I cross-posted on multiple places and I got a ton of lowball offers on other places, and I held out because I knew it was worth it. And luckily it did sell for that asking price. Here is LL Bean again. Like I said, I love finding this brand. Great bolos within. This one is a men's fleece color block sweater. Another brand I like finding mostly in men's. I listed this for around $35 on Posh and accepted an offer of $27. Next up, this one is a style-based piece. It is not a brand I would memorize, but had a lot of great factors. So barn jackets, chore jackets, very trendy right now. And if you have a lined one, it's going to significantly increase value. So this had a very retro blanket lined type of deal, and it also had a contrast corduroy color. All of those things are significantly adding value to the piece. I believe I had this listed for a little over like around 50 to 60 on Posh to account for offers, and I accepted an offer very quickly for $44. You'll also notice that I included blanket lined in my title because it does add value, and we also put corduroy. Next up is another icebreaker item. So just showing you kind of the difference between the weight of these items and how it can significantly steer the pricing. So this is women's again. It is a base layer, but this one is a larger size. It's an extra large and it is a 320. So for all of those reasons, pricing looks a lot different than those other ones that I sold for $25. This one sold for an offer of $51. And very last piece is more of a style-based piece. This is J. Crew. In the spring and summer, I like finding their longer length dresses, and also paired on top of that, anything that is like multicolor, rainbow, pastel-y always performs well for me. So lots of factor stacking in this piece. Definitely more of a spring item, but it's still sold for my full asking price of $35. I included the keywords preppy, pastel, plaid, tiered, midi, and then teacher and spring. All right, guys, so that's it for what sold this week. I hope that you enjoyed watching. If you're not already, consider subscribing down below as I put out these what sold videos every single week. So if you want to know what's selling on eBay and Poshmark for me, subscribe down below and hit that notification bell and hit all. That way you'll be notified every time they go live. But that's all I have for you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.